What's going on, fantasy owners? It's time for another edition of the Fantasy Football Stock Report. This is week number 8 on the schedule. The season is flying by fast. I can still recall when I was doing the season preview, so we're already about the halfway point through the season. Hopefully you guys are sitting good in terms of your records. My team now is doing pretty well on a 2-game winning streak and just hoping to go up from here. So we're going to talk in this video about the guys to ride for this week. These are the 5 guys that I'm mentioning here that I think could really have a breakout week for you this week and that have come on really strong lately, got some forward momentum going. If there's information on more players you guys are looking for, they have a good week this week, don't forget to check out my notes. I will type these up as soon as I finish the videos. I want to get these quickly recorded and uploaded for you guys this week. I know it's been really, really tight for me, again, trying to get these up and ready for you, but let's just dive right in. Starting with the quarterback position. The quarterback that I really, really like this week that I think you guys should ride, and obviously at this point in the season, you're probably riding this guy already, but it's clear now that A, he's showing no ill effects from the concussion that he sustained, and B, he just continues to put up good numbers, and that's RG3. That's Robert Griffin III. He was going up and play the Giants last week and had a great fantasy day, 26 fantasy points in a CBS league. This week, he's facing a Steelers defense that, yeah, I mean, normally on paper looks pretty strong, but you have to understand, no Polamalu. So that's a big hit in and of itself. So I still think Griffin's going to find a way to take advantage of that. I still think he's going to be a strong play this week. I really like him as definitely a number 2 with upside. Your buys this week are Baltimore, Buffalo, Cincinnati, and Houston. So if you're losing a guy like a Flacco this week, or maybe a Matt Schaub in Houston, maybe Griffin's someone that you plug in for your starter this week. I think he's going to take big time advantage of a kind of depleted Pittsburgh secondary and still put up decent numbers for you. So definitely a number 2 with upside, but definitely a sneaky start if you're like a Flacco owner or a Schaub owner who needs a solid, just maybe 1 week buy replacement or someone you can stash or that's on your bench all season and haven't used him yet. You plug him in this week, I think he's going to get solid numbers for you. Other quarterbacks I like this week, continue to ride Josh Freeman. The matchup is a little bit tougher this week against Minnesota, but I still think he's going to be all right. Brandon Weeden, got to keep riding his hot hand, goes up against San Diego this week. Carson Palmer also has a good matchup, going up against a very weak Chiefs defense. I like him. And I got to say it, I mean, Tennessee's defense has not been impressive this year. Maybe just a 1 week replacement, but again, Andrew Luck maybe is a guy you can plug in as a 1 week replacement. Speaking of the Titans, the running back that I want you guys to ride this week, and maybe this should come as a surprise. We mentioned before that Sean Green kind of came out of the blue against the Colts. Well, CJ, as we recently called him, CJ No K or 0K, is licking his fantasy lips at this matchup because the Titans are facing the Colts this week. And obviously, if Sean Green can come out of a bad season with a breakout performance, there's no reason to think that Chris Johnson can't. He has certainly been on the uptick. He destroyed Buffalo last week for 31 fantasy points in a CBS league. Just absolutely going back on the right track. And again, this matchup could be better. He might not hit 31 again, but certainly he's going to get at least, I would say, at least more than 15 points this week. The Colts defense against the run will stop anybody this season, really. So, obviously, if you're a Chris Johnson owner and you've still had faith in him the rest of the season, you're definitely reaping the benefits from last week, and I think you will definitely this week. You can safely play Chris Johnson without a doubt. He's definitely going to go off this week for you. He's obviously the guarantee of the week. I can't see any reason why the Colts would shut him down if they can't even stop Sean Green. Might not even stop a nosebleed. So, I mean, it's clear-cut, cut and dry. Got to go with Chris Johnson this week. Other guys I like at running back, continue to have faith in Doug Martin with Tampa Bay. I mean, he's had a productive year. I know some people were kind of worried, LeGarrette Blount might be taking touchdowns away from him, but Tampa Bay last week had 3 opportunities from the goal line. They went with Blount every time, and Blount could not get them in the end zone. So maybe Martin is going to be the guy to start taking those goal line carries, and they'll completely shut Blount down again back in his backup role. So keep going with Doug Martin this week, even though it's going to be really tough sledding. You might want to temper expectations again. That's a tough Minnesota defense. I think he'll still maybe get you at least one score. Maybe 60 yards. We'll see what happens, but don't lose faith on Doug Martin. A big waiver claim this week that I like, Rashard Jennings of Jacksonville. He's going up against Green Bay, and yeah, that's a tough matchup, but he's going to get the bulk of the work because Maurice Jones-Drew is out with that foot injury. Right now, they are calling it just a sprain. They're not sure whether or not it's a full Lisfranc injury, which obviously, if that were the case, that would end his season, like what happened to Matt Schaub last year. So keep your eye on that situation if you're an MJD owner. But for now, Rashad Jennings is definitely a guy that you want to plug in the lineups this week if you're looking for like a number 2, number 3 option at running back. Same situation in Pittsburgh. Jonathan Dwyer got the bulk of the work last week with 12 fantasy points. This week going up against the Skins D that's not exactly strong. But the news is coming out, though, that Rashard Mendenhall and Isaac Redmond might have a chance to play this week. So if they're both out, then obviously Dwyer's your guy. But if not, obviously whoever's playing running back in Pittsburgh, I think is worth a look this week against Washington. And Marshawn Lynch of Seattle, I think definitely is also a good guy to ride this week, going up against, the Lions. Now, the defense did look better last week in Chicago. Granted, it was still a loss, but I still think overall Lynch is going to get his Lions share, no pun intended, of the work. So I think he's still a safe play this week. The wide receiver that I want you guys to ride this week, but obviously this hinges on whether or not Greg Jennings is still out for the Green Bay Packers. But Randall Cobb is finally starting to bounce back. There, early on in the year he was being used a lot in the offense, even when Jennings was healthy. Then he was out, and then for a time Cobb started to recede a little bit, because Jordy Nelson broke out and Jermichael Finley and all these other guys. But that's the problem in Green Bay. There are so many weapons there, and even James Jones, another guy. But the thing to remember is that when Jennings is out, these other guys do have the opportunity to get more targets. And Cobb has been getting more targets lately in the Green Bay offense. He had 21 fantasy points last week. So obviously he's definitely getting more involved, definitely getting more work. And this week, again, a juicy matchup against a very weak Jacksonville defense. Rodgers should be the number 1 quarterback across the board this week. If Jay Cutler can carve up Jacksonville's defense, certainly Aaron Rodgers can do the same. I wouldn't be surprised if he puts up another 50 spot like he did a couple weeks ago in that 6-touchdown game. So obviously, as long as Jennings doesn't play, which signs right now, we might want to monitor that, but he still might be bothered by that groin injury. But obviously, Jones is going to be a starting option. Nelson obviously is going to be a starting guy, but definitely look at Randall Cobb. I think as a solid maybe number 2 start this week with some upside for this juicy matchup. Other guys to look at, take a peek at Andre Roberts of Arizona. Obviously, the Cards are playing San Francisco this week. That's a very tough matchup. It's kind of a battle of defense on both sides. And who knows, the 49ers might end up trying to double Larry Fitzgerald, and that means that it could open the door for Roberts to get some opportunities. He did have 16 fantasy points last week, so maybe take a look at Andre Roberts, maybe number 3 play for you if you're desperate. Santana Moss from Washington had a big bounce-back week. Apparently RG3 is finally learning to start to throw to this guy. Obviously, it doesn't help that at the tight end position, Fred Davis is now out for the year with an Achilles injury. So maybe Moss will getting some more targets thrown his way. I like him again against that Pittsburgh secondary with no Polamalu in it. So maybe you look at Santana Moss as a number 2, number 3 play this week. I'm finally buying into Jeremy Curley. Now that Santonio Holmes has been out for the year with that issue with his injury, Curley definitely is starting to get some reward, and it's also nice that the Jets' offense and Dustin Keller is back. So maybe you look at Curley as a nice number 3 safe option going up against Miami this week. Not as strong. Miami's number 1 against the run, but not exactly great against the pass. So you can definitely use Curley as a number 3 option if you're looking. And also, gotta buy this guy. Buy into Josh Gordon. I picked him up off waivers last week. He had 11 fantasy points last week against the Colts. He's obviously Brandon Whedon's number 1 target right now. I definitely think going forward he's going to be a strong option for you. They play the Chargers this week. Kind of a mid-tier defense there, but I definitely like Josh Gordon going forward. Right now he's always line looks like to get at least a touchdown. And he's the more deep ball threat. You kind of use Ben Watson in the short passes, but Gordon definitely knows how to catch the deep ball. And Greg Little, you never know if he's going to be Mr. Dropsy like he usually is or whatever. So definitely buy into Josh Gordon. And the wild card I'm going to give you guys this week is, oddly enough, a Lion, which, but there's a reason for that. Early in the season, a couple games in, we had completely written Titus Young off. We thought he was going to be the number 2 guy behind Calvin Johnson. We thought Nate Burleson was aging and wouldn't catch up to him, but Young definitely disappointed early on in the season. Well, now Burleson, unfortunately, is out for the year with a broken leg, so that means that Young and maybe even Ryan Broyles are going to get some more looks going forward. So, but I think Young is definitely going to be cemented into the number 2 role now that Burleson's out. Certainly, Broyles has more upside, being he's a younger player, but Young's fairly, again, pun intended, Young is young as well. He's not been in the league that long. So maybe you look at him as a number 3 option. Definitely want to see if he'll break out first, but I definitely like his upside going forward. So if you fell through with him earlier in the year, I did. I drafted the guy to be my number 3. He fell through. Well, I'm giving him a second chance this time around, so hopefully things will pan out there. If you had faith in Titus Young, give the guy a second chance. Let's see what happens. And finally, tight ends, real quick. I mentioned Dustin Keller. It's great to see that he's healthy again in the Jets' offense. The Jets need as many weapons as they can with their offense right now, with Holmes out for the year. So Keller had 15 fantasy points last week. This week again going up against Miami. I think he's certainly a safe bet for a touchdown. I think he's certainly a number 2 option with upside. Again, if you have, like, if you're an Owen Daniels owner or a Dennis Pitta owner, and you have your guys, or even a Scott Chandler owner, and you have buys this week, maybe you look at Keller as maybe a 1-week option. I don't think he's consistent enough to be on, at least starting full time just yet because of the injury and because of what he does in the past. But certainly for this week, I think you can plug him in as a number 2 guy. Also, again, I mention him every week, but Heath Miller finally bounced back again this week, had 13 points this past week. Who knows? Maybe Big Ben's going to take him to the Pro Bowl after all. We don't know, but he's certainly been very inconsistent, though. So, again, kind of temporary expectations, but I like him again against that Washington defense this week, so I definitely think he's a safe maybe number 1, number 2 play for you. And speaking of Washington, as I mentioned, Fred Davis is out for the year with that Achilles injury. The guy to step up in his place, remember this name, Logan Paulson, is the next guy in line in Washington. He had 7 points filling in for Davis. It's going to be interesting to see how Griffin will utilize him in the offense, or if they even sign another tight end off of free agency or waivers. But definitely kind of keep your eye on this guy. Again, the Pittsburgh matchup is pretty juicy, but just kind of take a wait-and-see approach, a deep flyer on him if you're desperate for a tight end this week in that situation there in Washington. All right, guys, those are the guys that I like this week. And the guys you want to ride. Don't forget to check out the 5 to avoid video as well on my channel as well. And also don't forget to check out the full notes on my Facebook page. Don't know if it'll be as detailed this week as in past because I've tried to get this in so tight, but I will definitely mention all the guys that I just mentioned on this video as well. Really rapid fire, really trying to get these in for you guys. Good luck in week 8 this week, and don't forget to check out the other videos. Thanks, guys, and take care. Thanks.